So why does biodiversity matter? Well, it turns out that there's a whole bunch of reasons, and it's in a crisis right now. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel, please. I wanted to talk about biodiversity. Biodiversity is the essential product of evolution. As there are ecological niches, there are places in the deep sea where life could survive and life adapts itself to the deep sea. There are places on high mountains where life can survive and life adapts itself to rarefied air. All these different environments all around the world, and pretty much every place life figures out a way to survive and prosper, as it were, to grow, and biodiversity provides many benefits to us as humans. For one thing, it provides resilience to the system, to the living systems that support us. It provides resilience to our agricultural systems, to the systems that clean our air, which is mostly our trees, to the systems that clean our water, which is trees and soil and plants rooted in the soil, and biodiversity is really essential to having a functioning planet. It's sort of like your body. You've got all these different organs in your body, and they all do different things. And you can live without one kidney, but you can't live without both. A certain loss of, or you can live without one kidney, but you can't live without. And maybe if you took out a kidney and half your liver, and maybe you could make it, but as you start decreasing the components of a complex system like a human body, you start decreasing its ability to survive. And as we are decreasing biodiversity, as we're killing off species, there's 1 million plant and animal species that have been identified now by scientists that are at risk of going extinct within the next few decades. And if that happens, that loss of biodiversity simplifies the world's ecosystem in a way that weakens it, that makes it more fragile, just like if you were to start losing parts of your body. So a group of 23 ex-ministers from 6 different continents, this was founded by Madeleine Albright, the former U.S. Secretary of State, has come together and proposed that we should set aside 30% of the planet's land mass, and governments should help fund this, because a lot of this is going to be actually in poor countries where there are still jungles and savannas and forests and things that have not been stripped out and replaced by development. That 30% of the countries of the world's landmass and 30% of the oceans should be set aside as sanctuaries to preserve biodiversity. And this is solid stuff, and it's very, very real, and it's so important. And just to give you an example of the importance of biodiversity, the new study out, this is from Oregon State University, researchers at Oregon State University, they found that bears in southeast Alaska play a crucial role in keeping the biodiversity of the forest going by eating berry seeds and then pooping out the berry seeds as they're wandering around the forest. And then the small rodents mine the bears' butt berries, it says in the article, for actual berry seeds, which they then bury in the ground to later snack on. There's an article by Drew Millard. And, spot on. And these bears, and I believe I shared this story with you a couple of years ago, that in the Pacific Northwest, they found that there were some of the rivers, when the rivers were dammed and the salmon stopped running, that certain kinds of trees were dying and the forests were becoming sick, and nobody could figure out why. Why is that? What do these trees need? Well, it turned out that the bears in these forests had been eating salmon out of the rivers, and salmon go from rivers out to the ocean and back, and so salmon are actually fairly high in iodine, from salt water. And that iodine got into the bears by eating the salmon, and then the bears pooped the iodine into the forest, and some of these kinds of trees actually needed the iodine. It was an essential nutrient. And so here you've got, life cycling. You know, the salmon eating plants out in the ocean, and then, you know, bringing that iodine up the rivers when they come up to spawn, and then the bears eating that. So this is all really important stuff, and thus, if you start losing the bears, you're going to start losing the herb, you know, the plant biodiversity, because you're not going to have the principal spreader of seeds for berries going on anymore, and you're going to start seeing berries start dying off in the forest, and they're an important part of ground cover, and because many of them have thorns, they're also an important habitat for small rodents, for chipmunks and mice, and for small birds that actually, you know, literally have their young, you know, scrub jays, for example, and some kinds of sparrows actually, you know, raise their young inside these berry bushes because the predators can't get to them because of the thorns. And so if you get rid of the bears, all that other stuff goes away. And now you've got, you know, Senator Lisa Murkowski in Alaska and the Trump administration trying to open up the Songus National Forest to the logging industry, which is going to knock out the bears. So it's extraordinary stuff. Now, there's another article. This is from MNN.com. 5 reasons why biodiversity is a big deal. And they cover all the ones that I've already talked about. But the 5th one, I think, is just extraordinary. And that is the final point that I would make about biodiversity is biodiversity produces awe. You know, it's a spiritual component. It's actually, there have been some really good studies done that find that when people are in hospital rooms that have a window that looks out on greenery, on forest land, that those people heal faster than people who are in hospital rooms that have no window. That people who go into nature every day, Louise and I walk for a mile or so, and we walk, you know, along the Columbia River and just see all this beautiful stuff, all this nature. It is so healing that people who have daily contact with nature have less depression, less anxiety, lower blood pressure. I mean, there's just this whole collection of positive physical attributes. But I would say that the spiritual attribute is really also very, very important. When I see a bird that's uncommon, or when I see a butterfly that I haven't seen before, and they're all vanishing like crazy, you know. You look at that and go, wow, this is the diversity of life on this planet. It's awe, wonder, right? This is an important thing for us to experience. It feeds us spiritually, emotionally, at our deepest levels. And so these are all good, solid reasons, you know, the beauty of nature, to maintain biodiversity, and why biodiversity is such a big deal, that we need to be paying attention to this and taking seriously this call from Madeleine Albright and her group to set aside 30% of the planet's land mass and 30% of the ocean to, you know, no ships, no development, to be sinks for biodiversity, places where the planet can retain its biodiversity. If we don't, we're going to be living in a very, very, very poor world.